Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Canadiens Connection podcast. Right here on Rocket Sports Radio, we keep you informed, engaged, and entertained each and every week when we dish out all of the latest news, opinions, and analysis about the Montreal Canadiens. Welcome. My name is Amy Johnson. I'm going to be your host for today for episode 369 of the Canadiens Connection podcast, titled Habs Storylines. From contract friction to playoff focus. Lots to unpack today at kind of all ends of the spectrum. So can't wait to get into it. But first, let me introduce my wonderful co-host. He's our founder and president here at Rocket Sports. His name is Rick Stevens. Opening night is in the books, sir.
Yeah, we've got the NHL season's underway. The AHL season is underway. Hockey is back. It's a long weekend. You know, the only thing that doesn't make it being fabulous is my poor fantasy football team. I talked about it last week. Injuries all over the place.
Yeah.
You go to the waiver wire, there's nothing there. And I just got a lesson in supply and demand from our guest that's coming up in the second segment.
Yeah.
Who sent me a trade proposal to help fix my issues.
Yes.
Yeah, that's gonna
magnanimous.
Oh, for sure.
As I think they called it.
Yeah.
It's very, very nice. Well, while you're lamenting the status and situation of your fantasy football team, what I can happily say is we are here to talk about hockey today, and we are not here to talk about the MLB playoffs or the Philadelphia Phillies. And we are not here to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, thankfully.
Bad day in Philly sports.
So here's a fun fact, and I apologize. I cannot credit the person who actually looked this up and tweeted it, but I did not look this up myself. I found it on Twitter. So on Thursday, the City of Philadelphia suffered sports losses. Flyers season opener, they lost to the Panthers. Eagles, Thursday Night Football, lost massively to the New York Giants, which never should have happened.
How did that happen? Yeah,
I don't know. And the Phillies lost Game 4 against the LA Dodgers, which
just
was a
throw to first base, for God's sakes.
Yeah. And that loss eliminated them from the playoffs. That is only the second time in sports history, allegedly, that a city has had its NHL, NFL, and MLB teams all lose on the same day, with the MLB team being eliminated from the playoffs. It's only the second time, apparently, allegedly, reportedly, in sports history that has happened. The only other time it happened also happened to Philadelphia.
Oh, man.
And I can't remember off the top of my head because I don't have the tweet sitting in front of me of what year that was. I want to say it was in the 80s. Don't quote me on that. But yeah.
That's rough.
It's rough. So I'm glad we're not here to talk about that today.
No.
We are here to talk about Montreal. They are well underway. And here's what you can expect on today's show. We're going to quickly recap the two games that they played to open the season this week against Toronto and Detroit. We're going to get you caught up on the latest roster news. And yes, that means we are going to talk a little bit about the current state of affairs, at least on the surface, on Lane Hutson's contract extension, because that is everywhere in the news these days.
Took a turn this week.
It did. And we are also going to get you caught up on the prospect report. Some of the Canadiens prospects who are playing outside of the pro leagues are certainly making their presence known. We're going to get you caught up on that. Get you caught up on how Laval opened their season on the road on Friday night. And bring you some other highlights and news from around the NHL before we dig into our big topic this week, which is our second segment. And that segment's called Canadiens Prospect Pipeline to play key role in success this season. And we're going to, we've gotten you all set for the Canadiens to get their season started, which they did this week. This week, we just want to take a moment to get you kind of to set the stage for what to expect from the not just the Laval Rocket as an AHL team, but more importantly, the prospects for the Canadiens who are playing for the Rocket and the impact, the serious impact that those prospects could have for the Canadiens this season. So we're going to get you kind of all squared away with what to expect, who to watch for, the names to watch for. And to help us do that, we have a very special guest as well coming in the second segment. So you're not going to want to miss that. Patrick Williams from the AHL and from Flow Hockey is going to be here with us to help break all of that down. And then we've got a great Canadiens Connection question of the week for you. And we had some terrific responses to last week's question of the week that we're going to, we picked a few of the great ones and we're going to read those out to you. So sit back, grab a cup of tea, cup of coffee, your favorite adult beverage, whatever time of day you are listening to this. Grab a snack, settle in, and we're going to have some fun today talking about some hockey that counts because we're already 2 games into the NHL season. Don't forget, it is an interactive show. If you would like to reach out to us, if you've got a question, if you've got a comment, if you have an opinion you'd like to make, if you have something you'd like to ask our opinion about, or if you have an answer to the Canadiens Connection fan question of the week, there's a number of ways that you can interact with us to do that. You can text us on the Rocket Sports text line. That's 585-3-ROCKET. Again, that's 585-3-ROCKET. If you're listening on Spotify, drop us a comment on Spotify, and we might just pull your great comments from there to read on the show, as well as on our YouTube channel. Drop comments on our YouTube channel. You can go to InsideTheCanadiens.com to find our YouTube channel, or just hit us up on social media. The handle is at Habs Connection on X, Facebook, and Instagram. So comment early and often, and who knows, your comment might just be one that we choose to read on next week's show. Let's quickly recap what has happened since we've been gone. 2 games this week, both for the regular season. They both go in the record books. They count. With the season opener for Montreal on the road in Toronto, facing off against the Maple Leafs. In preseason, they had just a gigantic failure in their first preseason matchup against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then a couple nights later, they had a second preseason game against the Maple Leafs, and they actually turned things around, looked pretty decent, and won that game. Well, apparently we're alternating because we're back to the third game, this time in the regular season against the Maple Leafs, and Montreal came out on the losing side of this one with the home team, Toronto Maple Leafs, winning 5-2.
Yeah, this game, I don't know. It was boring from the outset. It was a low energy game.
Yeah.
It started right from the opening ceremonies. It was terrible opening ceremonies by
really
the Leafs.
Bland.
That intro music they had for the players, it didn't go well. The game was just kind of low event. Marty St. Louis called it unlucky afterwards. I don't know if that really described the entire game. Certainly described that wild play when Toronto scored their game winner. Matheson broke his stick.
Mm-hmm.
Hutson lost his stick. Lane Hutson would afterwards describe it as a crappy game for himself. He didn't feel he played very well. Who did play well, and maybe was a bit of a surprise, Zach Bolduc, Oliver Kapanen, they both scored. Oliver Kapanen, that was his first career NHL goal, and he scored it shorthanded. And the last time that happened, the first NHL goal scored by a Canadian, well shorthanded, that was back in 1984 with Chris Chelios. So it's been a while. Top line kind of non-existent. They were a collective -9. Sam Montembeault was kind of ordinary. At least would like at least a goal back. 22 saves, 25 shots, 880 save percentage. Everybody looked a little rusty, I think, in this game.
And it's two of the new guys that come up with the only scoring. So that took us then to the very next night. Nothing like starting the regular season with a back-to-back on the road. This time traveling to Detroit, another Original Six team. Will say pregame opening ceremony much better. And ho Nelly, those throwback uniforms for Detroit are beautiful.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
Really nicely done. Stick tap to the Red Wings organization on that. And Montreal was much more up for this one, putting a pretty big hammer down on the Red Wings, winning it 5-1 with 5 different goal scorers. We're
going to see those with respect to the uniforms. We're going to see them a fair bit this season. We should mention it is the Red Wings centennial season for them. And part of the ceremony was a tribute to Alex Delvecchio, one of their greats, of course, played with Gordie Howe. He died in July up this summer from a prominent member from Thunder Bay, Ontario, actually born in Fort William. Those jerseys are just gorgeous. The detailing on them is great. In this game, it was all Montreal. And that was partly because the Red Wings were in such disarray. They looked awful. The poor defensive zone coverage, the giveaways, awful goaltending by John Gibson in his Red Wings debut. And the Canadiens took advantage. And again, it was Zach Bolduc, Oliver Kapanen scoring. You had Matheson, Carrier, Slavkovsky got a goal on the power play. Couple of assists from Brendan Gallagher, including a gorgeous one to setting up Bolduc. Nick Suzuki had a couple of assists, and Jakub Dobeš was outstanding in this one, making 30 saves on 31 shots, 968 save percentage. He was great.
Gotta say, I'm very pleased that I chose to draft Oliver Kapanen in our Rocket Sports fantasy hockey.
Nicely done.
Because he's already got me 2 goals on the week. I think facing off against you. So Oliver Kapanen's help. Yeah.
Let me just
go Oliver
that.
Kapanen.
Yeah.
Go Oliver Kapanen. Overall, it's just we're just 2 games in, but every game does count when we get to April. So while there were definitely some gaping holes where things need to still kind of wake up and come together, there were some highlights this week. I think that you came up with your own 3 stars for this week.
Yeah, and no surprise here. Oliver Kapanen, Zach Bolduc, each with a couple of goals. Jakub Dobeš was outstanding. Those are my 3 stars. But there was also notable performances. Brendan Gallagher looks re-energized.
Yeah, he does.
Ivan Demidov, he looks like he belongs. He isn't trying to be too flashy. He looks like he's trying to make responsible plays. Jake Evans is the only Montreal Canadian who can take a face-off. I think he's over 60%. The rest of the centers are in the 30 to 35% range. So he gets a nod.
Which is weird because in preseason that they were doing really well at face-off.
They're doing better. Yeah. But against NHL competition, at least the first 2 games, the face-offs has been a weak, especially defensive zone face-offs has been a weakness for Montreal.
It's Rick, this week we've heard already people talking about, what's the identity of the team. It's a little early for that. Yeah. I don't. You're going to draw conclusions from 2 games and the preseason. I guess. Yeah, it's absolutely too early. You can say that the Canadiens' intent
is to control the neutral zone. The Canadiens' intent is to move the puck out of the defensive zone very quickly, and that's going to be the way that they improve. One of the goals is to improve the defense, and that's how they're going to do it. Is with a focus on taking possession, recovering the puck, getting out, making that pass out of the zone quickly, and trying to control the neutral zone when the opposition is attacking, and it's working so far. One of the things we've seen is that Marty's very good at putting in these systems, not so good at when teams make, their reactions, they make their adjustments. He hasn't been able to catch up with that. He kind of sticks with what had been working. We'll see how that works out this season. Canadians got to get better on the faceoffs because that's going to improve their, all over the ice, their ability to defend, their ability to get it out of the defensive zone, and their ability to be successful on special teams. So that's going to be an area. And the other area is, and Marty talked about it, they need to shoot the puck. They need to adopt more of a shooting mentality. It doesn't matter if you control your own zone or control the puck in the offensive zone if you're not shooting the puck.
Well, yeah, this is something I mentioned before we started recording the show today as well. It's been, and it was a problem during preseason. It's a problem that has carried over now into regular season as well. They are really inconsistent and really slow to get started on shooting. When they are shooting, they're shooting too much from the perimeter. They're not getting penetration in towards the nets. They're not getting shots on goal, and you're not going to score goals if you're not getting shots on goal. I don't care about your shot attempts. If you're not getting it into the net, you're not going to score goals. And so, when you see periods on the box scores where the Canadians are consistently in the single digits for shots on goal in period after period after period, that's something that they need to fix pretty quickly.
And it's interesting that one of the goals of this season was to spread the offense around because the Canadians were far too reliant on the top line last season. And so far, the top line they haven't scored a 5-on-5 goal yet. So that's probably good news because we know that offense will come. But at this point, they're getting defense, secondary scoring, and not the top line contributing. Not yet.
Just as a reminder, as talking about the roster now, as a reminder of how we finished up getting to the opening night lineup. Kaapo Kähkönen, they sent a handful more guys down to Laval, and Kaapo Kähkönen was placed on waivers. He cleared and was sent to the Laval Rocket. However, on the same day that Kaapo Kähkönen was placed on waivers, so was forward Sammy Blais, and he did not make it to Laval.
No, and Kent Hughes said they weren't really expecting this. But Toronto has some injuries. They picked up Sammy Blais. And is that put a crimp in the Canadiens' plans? No, not really. Sammy Blais was there more as an insurance policy than anything else. If there are injuries, they can be replaced from players from Laval. Interesting, though, that in addition to claiming Sammy Blais, the Toronto Maple Leafs also claimed Caden Primo from the Carolina Hurricanes, and he will be he has been their backup goaltender, to Stolarz.
Well, it was, I'm sure, interesting for him on opening night to be wearing a Leafs uniform on the ice at the same time as his former team, the Montreal Canadiens.
And he got a Leafs mask done very quickly because he had that done. So as far as the opening lineup, it's pretty well identical to what we talked about last week, our projection to what the opening lineup was going to be, with the exception of the Canadiens decided not to go to the limit in keeping the 23-man limit. They are one short of that and have 22 players on the roster right now. And that's fine. That leaves them with an extra forward, Joe Veleno, an extra defenseman in Struble. And what it also helps them to do is, because they aren't at that 23-man limit, they are daily accumulating cap space. And it's not to say that they will be able to make a big move sometime this season and use that cap space to bring in someone else. But I think they're being mindful of keeping open that possibility of a big move.
This still qualifies as quote unquote roster news, not the active playing roster. This is the Alumni Association's quote unquote roster. Former Canadiens defenseman Patrice Brisebois this week has been named the new president of the Canadiens Alumni Association's board of directors, because the former president of the association's board, Réjean Houle, is stepping down after almost 30 years.
27 years he's been president of the Canadiens Alumni Association, and kind of seen as synonymous with that role. Good choice in Brisebois. He's been very involved with the alumni, and we know that since Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes took over the organization, that the alumni has been much more involved. It was kind of an arm's length, or even the alumni were at times pushed away by Marc Bergevin, but they've been far more involved. And I think that's a good thing, and Patrice Brisebois will do a good job. Houle's staying active on the board, just not as president.
Well, maybe it'll give him more time to get down to Clarkson to watch his son coaching in the NCAA.
Yeah, big win over Penn State.
JF Houle's Clarkson team had a big win over Penn State this week. Penn State did answer that, though, and came up with a big win to split the series the next night. But JF Houle still coaching.
Mm-hmm.
That brings us to Lane Hutson's contract extension negotiations. And this is something, we talked about this over the summer multiple times, and we said, nothing to worry about, nothing to see here, nothing to fret about, no rush. There's no reason to rush. He's, get it done when it's going to get done. But suddenly, like now, ever since just this week, it's like total drama island around here. And there's, there's reports of this and there's reports of that. And, did you hear this? And, we think we heard that. And this person says, and it's just turning into kind of a bit of a circus, I think.
And it's easy to blame the media for ginning up the drama. But I don't think that's, and the mainstream media deserve their fair share of criticism. But I don't think you can blame it all on these stories being media generated, because somebody is providing the information for them to take it and run with it. I was big in the camp of nothing to worry about. They've got the whole season to worry about this and get it done. There's no rush. Be patient. Don't get excited. I think things have changed this week, and I'm a bit concerned about that. And because I think, first of all, it's early, and 2 games doesn't tell the story. But Lane Hutson isn't looking himself. You can see he's pressing. He's trying to make things happen. Rather than, just being the normal, creative, wonderful Lane Hutson, who we expected. He's been pretty self-critical of his game so far. And the aspects that make this a little weird. Now, Elliot Friedman came out this week after all of these, and we'll talk about what happened. But he said, kind of in a bottom line, quote, "I think this negotiation has gotten very emotional, and I think everybody needs a timeout," end quote.
great.
Why did he say that? Why did he come out that way? Well, and this is in no particular order, but it was odd that in Detroit, in the Canadiens team box, the general manager and Jeff Gorton and Ken Hughes always watched the games together. They were in a private box in Detroit. But what was odd is Ryan Barnes from Cortex, who's taken over the negotiations for Lane Hutson, was seen in discussion with Ken Hughes, seen in the box, seen entering the box. Why would you do that? Why would you do
Detroit?
This was in Detroit. Yeah. And why would that happen? The discussion and we've got to assume it was about Lane Hutson. Why would it be public? And it's public. Not what they said, but the visual. Why would the Canadiens want that to be public? They could have had the discussion anywhere. They could have had the discussion behind closed doors in a hotel conference room. They could have, talked on the phone. There was in a restaurant. There was lots of ways to deal with this, but why so public? And I think back to, the whole Mike Matheson thing at the Combine and out on a terrace of and the two of them sitting and they didn't need to do that either. Why are they doing this? Why? Because it only invites questions. It only invites speculation. And it invites the media to ask Lane Hutson questions about it. About his contract, which he doesn't want to answer or which he isn't answering.
No, and he shouldn't have to answer.
And so if there's no rush, if you want everybody to be patient, why would you trigger this kind of reaction, poke the bear kind of thing? I didn't like that. The other thing that came out is that there was a potential deal. And then they had to backtrack and Elliot Friedman said, no, I don't think a deal is happening today. How would that happen? Maybe media will speculate, but I don't know. The other part of it that you think had to come from a leak was that in the Hutson camp, there was family involvement. And I think fans just react negatively when they hear somebody's dad's involved, family's involved, they're having influence. And that isn't going to come from Lane Hutson. He's not going to say anything. His family's not going to say anything. His agent's not going to say anything. That had to come from the team. Had to. And that's what bothers me, because we hear right from the first day he was hired, Kent Hughes said he's going to use the media. He's going to leverage the media. He learned as an agent how to we've heard it 1,000 times that he's going to leverage the media. Well, we all assumed, or at least I assumed, I'll speak for myself, that he's going to use that, leverage the media when he's negotiating with another team. He's not going to use it against his own player to influence the negotiations, but I think he is. Hutson already has no leverage in these, or very little leverage in these negotiations, other than a Calder Trophy. And Hughes seems to be, and he has the fan base on his side. Mm-hmm. And Hughes seems to be using the leverage he has to ramp up the heat on the Lane Hutson camp side. Why are they apart? Well, it seems that the Canadiens want a long-term deal, and if that's the case, then the Hutson camp wants to be paid, wants mm-hmm. to be in that Noah Dobson range, in that Noah Dobson range. So that's where we're at. But all of this stuff before about preaching that don't worry, logic will prevail, and it still might. But I don't like the injection of emotion. I don't like the injection of drama. And Elliott's right, I think, in saying that that they needed to step back because it was getting too heated. There was getting to be too many rumors. Chris Johnson coming out and saying the Canadiens will not go to 10 million. Well, who said anyone asked for 10 million?
Right.
The heat's got to be turned down on the stove. And if they're taking a step back, if they're taking a pause in negotiations, I think that's wise.
And Lane Hutson doesn't need the distraction.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't need the distraction. So just, everybody just calm down. And we'll see if something comes out this week. In fact, one of the analysts, I should read this, one of the analysts on BPM, David, and I apologize, David, I'm probably going to pronounce your last name wrong. Edigi, perhaps. I don't know if that's correct. I apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but he tweeted something this week and said, in my opinion, expect to see Lane Hutson signed to a contract extension before the Habs opening game at the Bell Center on October 14th, either 6 years at $8.75 million each AAV or 7 years at $9.15. And I think that's interesting. Do they get something done before the home opener? It's possible.
And this isn't a random guy. He's a player agent, and now working with BPM Sport, and he has about 11,000 followers on X, and he's been right on some things before. This, what he said kind of makes sense, or at least in that range. Will it happen before the Canadiens home opener? Well, I think everybody, the fans would certainly react positively to that, and it would be a big relief for the fan base and perhaps everybody.
Perhaps everybody. We'll just have to wait to see. While we are waiting, let's take a quick dip into the Habs prospect report.
It's time for the Rocket Report. The Rocket Sports Media Team is your premier source for information about the Laval Rocket, the AHL affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens, as well as Habs prospects playing in the CHL, NCAA, and leagues around the world.
This week, we have a couple of prospects that we're going to shine the spotlight on. First up is goaltender Evgeny Volokhin. As a reminder, he's a 2023 fifth-round draft pick of the Montreal Canadiens. And on Friday, he made 20 saves on 21 shots to help his KHL team Spartak Moskva win 2-1. But he's had a kind of a busy week.
Well, he's had a very busy week. That was his first game in the KHL this season. He's also put in 9 games in the VHL. The VHL, it's a different system in Russia, of course, but think of it as kind of the AHL. And he on Tuesday, he had 32 saves and a 3-2 overtime loss. He played very well in that one for Kimmich. And then last Saturday, he made 31 saves to earn his first career VHL shutout. Good numbers in the VHL, 213 goals against, 927 save percentage, and got the promotion to Spartak. So, yeah, great start to the season for a Canadiens prospect goaltender.
In the NCAA, Michael Hage is already tearing it up. University of Michigan had a 5-1 win over Providence, and Hage scored twice in that game, and he is just on an absolute tear in the first 3 games of this season already.
Yeah, he's totaled 4 goals, 5 assists for 9 points in 3 games. So 3 points a game pace so far for Michael Hage for Michigan. I should mention that you mentioned it was a win over Providence. On Providence is Logan Sawyer, another Canadiens prospect. He had an assist for Providence in that game.
So Michael Hage getting kind of picking up right where he left off from last year. Over in the SHL, the Swedish Hockey League, Philip Eriksson is second in SHL scoring right now. He's got 7 goals and 7 assists for 14 points in 11 games already.
Yeah, 20-year-old. We saw him at the development camp. He was a 6th round pick, 165th overall for the Canadiens in 2023.
Excellent. Here on the North American side of things, the Laval Rocket opened up their training camp on Tuesday and then quickly hopped plane and headed to Manitoba because they, like the Canadiens, are starting their season on the road in Manitoba, playing a 2-game stint against the Manitoba Moose. And they got their season started on Friday night, playing the Moose, but like the big club, they also could not get the goal scoring really going. And after going down 2-0 to Manitoba after the first 20 minutes, they ended up with a 4-1 loss to the Moose. Not exactly the best way for them to open the season, but they've got another shot at the Moose on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, don't take this Moose team lightly this season. Based on the past, and the only goal in that game for Laval came on the power play. Joshua assist to Farrell and Engstrom, and it was Jacob Fowler getting the start in net. He made 27 saves.
He did. So Laval will rematch against Manitoba at 3 p.m. on Sunday afternoon. Then they will come home. They've got their home opener next Friday night when they welcome the defending Calder Cup champion Abbotsford Canucks into the building at Place Bell on Friday night. I'm sure that place is going to be rocking. Just some hockey notes before we take our first break here. The Athletic had an interesting ranking out this week where they split every single NHL teams into groups of forwards, defensemen, and goaltenders and ranked, put each of those groups into 5 different tiers and ranked every NHL team's forwards or defense or goaltenders into one of those 5 tiers. Very interesting to see how they split it out, and also very interesting to see where they've got Montreal rated in each of those 3 categories.
Yeah, very interesting. And in the tier, for forwards, they start best in class, tier 1, and you have the forwards of Tampa Bay Lightning, Vegas Golden Knights, Dallas Stars, in that grouping. And you can, those are the teams who are have had preseason talk about ending up in the final, the Stanley Cup final. Also, tier 2, you have above average forwards: Edmonton, Carolina, Colorado, Florida, Toronto, and others. Then you have the middle of the pack group: Columbus, Minnesota, Washington, Winnipeg, the Rangers, and Ottawa. And it's not till you get to tier 4, described as below average forwards, but with potential, that you find the Montreal Canadiens. And so I think we have to be careful. Lots of lofty predictions and praise for the forward group, but when they're put next to all the rest of the forwards in the now at the Athletic, they're just one group of ranking these forwards, but they've reached out to professionals to help them with their rankings, and they see the Canadiens as the roster's set right now as having a below average group of forwards. Also in that group, you have Detroit, who didn't look good the other night, Buffalo, Vancouver, Anaheim, Philadelphia, San Jose Sharks, and the New York Islanders. Interesting that the New York Islanders group has started the season with a top line of Bo Horvat at center, Jonathan Drouin now with the Islanders, and now subject to a 1-game suspension for his cross check.
Yeah.
But that top line was Bo Horvat, Jonathan Drouin, and on the right side, Emil Heineman.
Go Emil Heineman.
The Islanders said they wanted Emil Heineman, and they wanted him for a reason. Patrick Roy got him on the Islanders' top line.
Excellent. The defensemen, their first tier is their high-end tier. Again, naturally, you've got the likes of Colorado there, Dallas there. They've even included Florida and Carolina there. Their above-average tier is tier 2, and that is where you find the Montreal Canadiens. So the Athletic do have Montreal's blue liners in 2 tiers above where they place the forwards.
Yeah, and you heard a lot of, once Noah Dobson was acquired, you heard lots of people saying they have the best defensive grouping in the National Hockey League. Marty St. Louis said he wouldn't trade any of his defensemen for anybody else in the league. Well, the Athletic doesn't see it that way. They say the high-end defensemen, or as a group, are in those teams that are talked about in terms of being Stanley Cup contenders, whereas Montreal is in tier 2, above average, with Vancouver, Washington, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Ottawa, Buffalo, Toronto, Minnesota, and Vegas.
Finally, you get to goaltenders. Their first tier for goaltenders is what they call their world-class goaltenders. This is where you find the likes of Shesterkin, Hellebuck, Vasilevsky, and Bobrovsky. Tier 2 is where these teams have a high-level starter. So your Ottingers, Sorokin, Binnington, Swayman, Saros, Dustin Wolf. Tier 3 is a strong tandem starter. And that's where you find one of the Canadiens' goaltenders.
And that's what, a strong tandem starter is. You hear people talking about 1A, 1B, where the 1A goaltender needs a strong 1B in order for the team to be successful. Sam Montembeault is in this strong tandem starter list. He's listed as the 18th goaltender ranked overall. I think they go to 35 or thereabouts. So with Sam Montembeault, interestingly enough, Mackenzie Blackwood, Kemper, Thompson, Aiden Hill, the Canadian goaltenders that he is competing with respect to the Olympic team, and that he was competing with Four Nations. Then there's 2 tiers below that: unproven tandem goaltenders, and tier 5 is quality backups. So Sam Montembeault kind of rated middle of the pack as a goaltender. Is this? Do we report this? To get you to heap disdain and hate to the Athletic? No, it's just to kind of temper the expectations of the Canadiens season, and that remind people that there's still work to do.
Mm-hmm. There is. And, it is the beginning of the season. You're going to settle in on Saturday night to watch some great hockey. Where are you going to watch it? Well, the Canadiens announced this week that there's been a broadcast deal extension with Bell Media for the Habs regional games. So with Bell Media, that means TSN, there's not going to be any change in their broadcasting rights. They're going to broadcast 50 games per season. However, there will be a change in the RDS coverage.
Pretty big change. They currently, in this coming year, will broadcast 60 games. That will be cut by 15 games to 45 for the following season when this deal kicks in. It begins for the following season, and it was described in the media release as a long-term broadcast deal, but they didn't specify any kind of term for it. So we don't know how long it's going to last, but and of course what's missing here is the Rogers Media, the Sportsnet side, the TVR side, that they'll take up. The national broadcast will take up some of those games. How many games will be designated as Amazon Prime games. But is there still some room to, maybe some streaming service will be added in here? And Jeff Molson has talked about that for the future. So is this better for Canadiens fans? I don't think so. It means that games are going to be spread into more places, and you're probably going to need more subscriptions to find every game and to find games that aren't blacked out. But that's the way, that's what we know now, and that's how the broadcast landscape will change.
It's still interesting that starting last year, there were a couple of NHL franchises that had decided that they were going to have their own broadcast teams, and they would stream. You could just buy a streaming package from the franchise themselves and just get all games regardless. It'll be interesting to see if more and more teams over the next 5 years or so don't start moving towards that kind of a model. All right, we are going to take our first break here on the Canadiens Connection podcast. Coming up next is our big topic segment where we break down how the Canadiens prospect pipeline is going to play a key role in the Habs' success this season. And we're going to give you some analysis on that. And then we've got a very special guest, Patrick Williams from the AHL and Flow Hockey, joining us. So you don't want to miss that. Stick around. You are listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio.
Football is back, and so is your shot at big wins. With DraftKings Pick 6, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL, your game day instincts can score you real money fast. Here's the play. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, from breakout rookies to elite QBs, and unlock the upside every snap brings. The better your calls, the bigger your payout. And here's the kickoff bonus. New DraftKings customers get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. This season, play your player instincts. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN. Play just $5, get $50 in Pick 6 bonus picks. Make the call. Ride the upside. In partnership with DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
And welcome back to the Canadiens Connection podcast right here on Rocket Sports Radio. Once again, my name is Amy Johnson. If you would like to follow me over on X for hockey coverage and so forth, you can do so at my handle there at Flyers Rule. And of course, with me in the studio once again is our president and founder of Rocket Sports, my wonderful co-host Rick Stevens. Be sure you're following him on X. He has our main account here at Rocket Sports. Again, that's at Rocket Sports. That gets you updates about the Canadiens and their prospects, as well as links to all of our content on all of our platforms, whether it's YouTube, whether it's on our podcast platforms, or written content over at hockeyhotstove.com. And so you want to be sure to always keep an eye on that. So follow him over there at Rocket Sports. And hey, if you haven't done so already, why don't you take a moment and just tap subscribe? You don't ever want to miss an episode of the Canadiens Connection podcast. It takes just a moment for you to tap subscribe on your favorite podcast player, or head over to YouTube at InsideTheCanadiens.com and subscribe over there as well. So after what felt like a long off season of us inching closer and closer to training camp, this week the Canadiens made their final cuts, got down to that opening night roster. And of course, there's always maybe some happy surprises. This time it was Oliver Kapanen, big stick tap to him for putting in the effort and really making a good show of things, and got locked in to make the NHL roster. Others, comes with a little lump of disappointment to get cut for, guys like Owen Beck, who was probably very hopeful of making the Canadiens after he had a truly excellent training camp. Also bad news for guys like Florian Jacki and Adam Engstrom, who I think, turned some heads and opened some eyes to their potential. I think it was logical that they went back to Laval, but, we could be seeing them at the NHL level sooner rather than later. But just getting cut doesn't necessarily mean it's the end of the road. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It provides the next step of development and what they have to do to get back to that NHL roster. And frankly, Laval is really primed to make a significant impact on the fortunes of the Montreal Canadiens this season. Let's not forget, the Habs are the youngest team in the NHL this year. Not one of the youngest. They are the youngest team in the NHL. And they're coming off of a season last year with thankfully fewer man games lost due to injury than they had in recent history. I mean, we don't want to go back to those nightmares of those consecutive years where they were leading in the man games lost category. They had a little bit of a respite from that last year. And knock on wood, hopefully that's going to remain the case. Now, last year, the Rocket dominated the AHL during the regular season and came away with a monster record of 48-19-5. They could score. They were hard to play against. They were physical. They had grit. They had excellent goaltending. They had the complete package in the regular season, and that got them into the playoffs. Yes, the playoff run dried up pretty quickly, more quickly than most people anticipated when you look at how they performed during the regular season. But those players got a real taste of playoff hockey at the professional level, which was key to where they're sitting this year. And so the great thing was that all of that happened mainly at the hands of the youngest and younger prospects on the team. Those are the ones that we're now seeing kind of come into their own and have those good performances during training camp. And for what seems like the first time in decades, the Canadiens seem to finally have learned how to develop their own draft picks, which is something, Rick, that we have been begging the organization to get back to doing for years and years and years on this podcast.
Well, during the Bergevin regime era, I kept, Trevor Timmins gets a lot of blame, but I don't. A lot of the drafting was pretty good, but it was the Canadiens at that time under Marc Bergevin that believed that's all you had to do. And I always described it as a three-step process. You have to draft well, you have to develop well and have a focus on development, and then you have to help provide the transition to the National Hockey League. And it seemed like the previous regime was always forgetting about those last two steps. And the Canadiens have put a focus on and also provided resources under Gorton and Hughes for those last two steps. And it's paying off, and we saw it last year for sure. Now, this week, the focus by the head coach, Pascal Vincent, and Laval players is on using this season to prepare for the AHL playoffs, and I think that's it's very different. So the Canadiens themselves, they've got a young team. So are they going to be able to remain consistent through the season? If not, you're going to need Laval. Are they going to be able to remain as healthy as they did last season? If not, you're going to need Laval. So Laval is really important this year, and last season's growth, I think, is going to really benefit the big club. What was the growth? We saw Owen Beck. He really mastered the two-way game. He was given experience on the weekend on the wing, so he could add something new to his tool belt. Jared Davidson, 24 goals from Jared Davidson. Jared Davidson is a 5th round pick. 24 goals, 21 assists, 45 points, 3rd in scoring. Who predicted that? How many people were ready to run Sean Farrell out of town at the beginning of the season after he had a slow start? And then he exploded and ended up with 44 points, 20 goals. Florian Jacki, 24 goals, a ton of penalty minutes, an absolute ton, 175 penalty minutes, but 24 goals. Logan Mailloux was the Rockets' all-star last
for the second
season.
year in a row.
For the second year in a row. And Adam Engstrom, I think kind of emerged. He had a real successful transition, his first pro season. And people took notice of the way he moved the puck for Laval last year. You might as well take some of them as well.
Well, you know, equally as important as what the prospects gained last season was also the proper way in which the veterans who were on the roster played their role. Guys like Laurent Dauphin, Tyler Wotherspoon, they understood. Those guys bought in 100%, and Laurent Dauphin has even said this in interviews, bought in 100% to the role of being a supporter and mentor for the prospects and helping the team come together and win games while getting those prospects ready to go instead of having one eye on angling for a call up to the NHL. Those guys bought into that type of responsibility, and it paid off in dividends.
Lucas Candata as well as captain.
Candata,
he
yes.
set the tone and was a big upgrade over the previous captain in the way he knew he took that message that the focus is going to be on the prospects, and we're here to play a role, an important role as mentors.
Jacob Fowler obviously got added at the end of the season, coming off of an NCAA season where he won the Mike Richter best goaltender in the NCAA last year, comes in at the very end of the season to Laval, plays a prominent role in the playoffs, and that absolutely set him up for the spectacular training camp that he had for the Canadiens this year. And we expect him to really kind of zoom along in Laval this year. David Reinbacher last year came back from a lengthy injury time off, but he came back with a positive rebound, took some steps forward, looked strong at the end of the season. We hope that he can do the same thing when he returns from injury this time. And you can't say enough about the fact that brand new first-year Laval Rocket head coach Pascal Vincent was named the AHL Coach of the Year, winning the Louis A.R. Pierre Memorial Award. He was the key driver. Just like those veterans 100% bought into their role in helping the prospects, Pascal Vincent 100% bought into his responsibility and his mandate from the Montreal Canadiens as Laval's head coach to, yes, give them a winning environment, but it's the prospects who have to take center stage. It's the prospects who have to learn. It's the prospects who have to be given the opportunities and advantages. And he did that. And they, as you like to coin this phrase last year, the prospects drove the bus to that regular season championship throughout the year last year. And all of that has set the stage for them to take a big leap forward this year, not necessarily just at the AHL level, but could really play a big role in the NHL if and when they get called up.
Yeah, and just one more note on Pascal Vincent, because we forget, or some may forget, that he had a trying season the season before, thrown in at the last minute, didn't have success in Columbus, but was an NHL head coach, not successful. And he didn't come in with the attitude like I'm an NHL head coach. He accepted his role and he did the best at it. And I loved his answer at the beginning of last season when he was asked, "What is your goal as head coach of the Laval Rocket, and he said to win the Stanley Cup. He understood that Laval was going to play a part, maybe not last season, maybe not this season, but whenever that happens, whenever the Montreal Canadiens win the Stanley Cup, Laval will have played a very important role and in making that happen.
I'm going to jump in there 1 second before you go on. I also loved his quote at the very end of the season at his exit interview post media availability, when all of the hubbub was going on because he was coach of the year. Everyone said that he was going to get snapped up for some sort of job in the NHL, and he kept getting asked about it. And his response to that was, if something comes along that I absolutely can't pass up, great. But until then, I am the head coach of the Laval Rocket. And we see he's still there. Mm-hmm. He could have had a multitude of offers, but he is still the head coach of the Laval Rocket.
So we look at last season, and it was, as we said, relatively, yes, there were injuries. Yes, there were significant injuries, but relatively healthy compared to previous seasons with man games lost. And that meant that Laval was mostly intact last season. And there were only short-term recalls to the Canadiens: Owen Beck, Joshua Waugh, Alex Barry-Boulet. Jakob Dobish was the most significant call-up to the Canadiens last year. That could change this year. And it's my thesis that the importance of the Rocket to the Canadian season can't be overstated. That's why we thought it was so important at the beginning of the season to invite Patrick Williams to provide a Laval preview, an AHL preview, and because he's just a heck of a nice guy, except when he's making fantasy football trades.
Well, it's October. The return of the regular season is upon us. The NHL has already started. The AHL is kicking off their regular season this weekend. And of course, without a shadow of a doubt, if you're a longtime listener or viewer of the Canadiens Connection podcast, you know what that means. It means the return of our favorite and the only AHL guru, Mr. Patrick Williams himself, right here on the show. And the return of the Angels.
Of the Angels welcoming Patrick Williams.
That's right. Welcome back to the show.
Good to be back. Thank you. Yeah, it's good to hear the Angels. I hope they had a good offseason.
They're well rested.
Well rested.
It's a big deal because as we record on Friday, it's opening night for the American Hockey League and the 90th season for the AHL. Big deal. So just to kick us off, maybe give your 20,000, 40,000 foot view of you've done a team by team preview for all of the 32 AHL teams. And we should say that if you're looking for Patrick Williams, of course, you can find him on theahl.com, but also flowhockey.tv. And I think this article, your preview, was on flowhockey.tv.
Yes.
What can fans, Montreal Canadiens fans, Laval Rocket fans, what can they expect from their team in Laval this year?
I think, to a large extent, a lot of what we saw last year, where obviously they were regular season champion, went to the Eastern Conference Final. They ran obviously into a group, in Charlotte that was well experienced, and that series ended rather abruptly. But returning a group that now has kind of been through some of that playoff test, and obviously one of the big stories is that Kaden Primo moved on and has now actually ended up with the Leafs, via Carolina. So you bring in Kaapo Kähkönen, guy with some pretty solid NHL experience, and somebody who took Charlotte to the Calder Cup final last year. So he'll pair up with Jacob Fowler in net. Fowler, obviously, lots of promise, lots of hype, but justified hype, and a really good group of young forwards. Um, Maybe what they lack in sort of the high end prospects at that position, they certainly make up for in terms of volume. And then, I guess, defensively, we had talked before coming on here that, obviously David Reinbacher was going to be out for a little bit, and Logan Mailloux was traded in the offseason. So kind of the two marquee names on the blue line from last season's playoff run, not with them. Tyler Wotherspoon went overseas. So definitely some changes on the back end. But, you're bringing back Pascal Vincent, and you're bringing back, at least a good solid percentage of a group that's certainly had a very memorable regular season, and all things considered, a pretty impressive playoff run as well.
So before we get into some of those individuals, the prospects, the veterans that are coming back, maybe we can just talk about their goals for the season. And I think it's clear. You mentioned the Rocket were regular season champs last year, and kind of dominated throughout the season. Fell in the playoffs. Capo Kakinen was who you mentioned was the goalie that ensured that Laval was ousted. But their goals for this season, I mean, all of the talk around Laval this week has all been about the playoffs, which might seem a little odd in the preseason. But you have Coach Pascal Vincent saying, quote, "We want to establish a work ethic and good habits from day one. We're building a foundation that will help us win in the playoffs. We're not going to spend 72 games doing things that don't translate to playoff hockey." So almost, setting a goal setting plus a bit of a maybe critique of what they did last season. And just to reinforce that, I have a quote from Florian Jacquet that says, quote, "We want to be a playoff team and we want to go deep. The talk in the locker room saying we're in playoff mode already. I love that. I try to play playoff style hockey every night. That's kind of my trademark, what I base my game on. I love it." So to talk to us about all of this playoff talk so early in the before the start of the 72 game season.
Yeah, it's not something you typically see a lot of in the AHL. Simply because, from one year to the next, it really is a reset in terms of rosters. And, in the NHL, there tends to be, for the most part, carryover from one season to the next. It's like, all right, it's usually a slow build toward what you hope is eventual prominence. Whereas in the AHL, you look at a lot of teams, they lose a third to a half, sometimes even more than that of who they had last year. So you really are starting from scratch in a lot of cases. I always try to, break the AHL regular season down into three parts. The first third is just getting your bearings, figuring out who these guys are, where they're coming from, just getting some semblance of a roster in place. And if you notice, for a lot of teams, generally their schedules on the lighter side, for that first third of the season. Then the midpoint is when you start to see some of the cream rise to the top, both team-wise and individual player-wise, and teams start to get their systems down. Young players start to figure it out, or at least coaching staffs that maybe had been counting on them now realize, okay, this player may be a little bit overmatched. So that middle third is sort of where you start to see some separation. And then the last third of the regular season is a sprint, both in terms of schedules. You look at teams' March, April schedules, they're usually packed. And that's where, it's kind of a sprint to the playoffs. And that's when you tend to hear this sort of talk about, okay, we have to play, a certain style that's translatable to the playoffs. And, we have to get ready. So the fact that the Rocket are, you know, talking this talk in October, is a little bit of a different twist.
Yeah.
It speaks to the fact that they went through that playoff experience last year, the good and the bad, right? Like they were tested at times, other times they kind of cruised and were able to get by. The AHL regular season, you win on talent more often than not, and also just frankly who you have at your disposal on any given night. Playoffs, as in most leagues, comes down to really having those details locked in, having good habits, and being willing to play very disciplined within that structure. And we also saw last year, right? Like in the playoffs, there were some you know discipline issues in terms of players getting off their game and getting into penalty trouble and that sort of thing. So yeah, the sooner you can get those habits locked into place, in October, November, and they become second nature by the time you get into May and ideally June. So yeah, I think, and this is a challenge too for teams that go through this playoff experience, right? Like we saw this in Hershey actually last year, and they spoke openly about it, that you've been through those high pressure games, in the conference final, the cup final, and then you find yourself back in October and November playing on like a Wednesday night, against ho hum opponent, and you have to get that intensity up to try to match where it was, um, back in the playoffs. So um, that's a challenge, right? So yeah, I mean, and you're dealing with young players, 20, 21, 22. I mean, you're in this league. If you've played 2 pro seasons, you're considered kind of like one of the wily old veterans. So it's a lot of moving parts, but yeah, certainly you can definitely tell that Pascal Vincent's message is you know is what is to play that playoff style hockey early, and it's certainly at least being conveyed to the players who are then obviously conveying it to the media.
I want to now just touch on two different areas with you as we kind of take a closer look at the makeup of the team. And I actually want to start kind of at the back of the ice, at the net. As you said, much justified hype about Jacob Fowler being the basically the starter for Laval. He's expected to get a lot of reps down in the AHL this year, get him as prepared as they can. Up until just a few days ago, when Kähkönen cleared waivers and arrived in Laval, they had Kevin Mandalese on the roster for training camp. They have since released him now that Kähkönen cleared waivers. So Kaapo Kähkönen will be the backup for Jacob Fowler. What can, we know it's important for Jacob Fowler to see a lot of ice time this year, but how important, what kind of role do you expect Kähkönen to play? What are his strengths that you see him mentoring Jacob Fowler on in this first full season in the AHL?
Yeah, absolute professionalism, meticulous in his detail, meticulous in his conditioning. Somebody that's a very low key personality, very much someone that will lead by example more so than any sort of like verbal leadership. But somebody that if you're in a 3-4 stretch of games, you can confidently put him in there and not feel like you're going to miss a beat. And it also gives you a little bit of a insurance policy in terms of two things. One, if you need some help, for the big team, you can easily call him up. He has NHL experience. He's been there. You can make that move and not worry that it's going to be too much. And it's also insurance policy in terms of a young goalie like Fowler, where certainly there's a ton of promise there, but he is now going into his first full pro season. That can certainly overwhelm young goalies, especially if they have a team in front of them. Not necessarily the case with the Rocket, but if they have a lot of young players in front of them as well, it it can be a bit much. So to have that veteran guy that can kind of come in, if there is a little bit of a growing pains for a young goalie is huge, because what you don't want to do is have a young goalie who maybe is still trying to find his game and is not there yet, and you have to keep rolling him out every night, and it's bringing him down, and it's obviously by extension bringing the rest of the team down. So I thought that was a really savvy move when they went out and got him in free agency. He was excellent. After he came to Charlotte last year in March at the deadline, and then took the team all the way through the playoffs to the final. And so easy plug and play type goalie, easy to integrate, in terms of personality, and somebody that you don't have to worry about. Just he'll go in there, he'll do his job, and he'll I think potentially give, if Fowler lives up to the hype, potentially give the Rockets one of the best goaltending tandems in the league.
Well, that would be fantastic. The other aspect of the makeup of the roster that I wanted to get your perspective on is on the defensive side, and you and Rick both alluded to this just a few moments ago, that yes, currently with David Reinbacher sidelined with an injury, Adam Engstrom, the only real viable prospect on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
But in addition to that, the Rocket the last couple of years have had a reputation of having a really difficult defense to play against. I look at the makeup. They've had quite an exodus on the back end, and I look at the makeup of the blue line now, and fans might not be so familiar with some of the names that are there, but is this a weaker defense than Laval has been accustomed to playing with over the last couple of seasons?
That's a good weaker in terms of prospects. Maybe actually a little more solid in terms of experience, right? Like, so you got Mark Delgado coming in. He played in the Nashville system. Went to back-to-back conference finals with Milwaukee. Very sort of easy guy to plug in to your blue line. Ryan O'Rourke coming over from Minnesota system. You got some maybe less heralded players like Wiley, who fans may be familiar with from his time with Belleville. Obviously a big rival, Nate Klerman. So in terms of actually, and Toby Bisson, in terms of actually, the overall blue line, I think it looks really solid. But you're right, yeah. Like in regard to prospects, especially with Reinbacher out for now, it's a little bit less prospect oriented than it's been in the past. I mean, last year, at different points you had two first rounders in Mayu and Reinbacher the playoffs there, right? Like, and that's not common for most teams to have kind of that prospect depth, right? Especially high end prospects at the same time. But it's a situation where they look pretty solid, right? Like, and those, as we know, right? Like those vets will carry you through, especially some of the early season stretches where young players are trying to find themselves, and certainly, with Tyler Wotherspoon, top end veteran leaving in the off season, you definitely need to get some of that experience in. So I think they'll be fine on the back end. I don't look at this team overall and see a whole lot of weaknesses, at least as currently constructed, right? Like, I mean, there's always that big caveat with any AHL team that the plans that you set in July, August, September, October, by November, December can go up in smoke, depending on what happens with your NHL team,
Mm-hmm.
either in terms of call-ups or just, what have you. So, but all that being said, what they have right now looks pretty solid.
And as we look at the forwards, I think it's here where you see a little the balance kind of flips a little bit, and that's where the prospects. Now, Adam Engstrom on defense, and he made an impression at Canadiens training camp and stayed a little bit longer maybe than people expect, but it was. Owen Beck, who did just about everything in training camp. Florian Xhaka, who turned a lot of heads, and maybe a disappointment in Joshua Waugh. But then the next tier of Sean Farrell and Philippe Machar and Jared Davidson, and the big guys in Tyler Thorpe and Luke Tuck, who are going to keep people honest, along with the veterans like Lucas Condata and Alex Belzile. So it seems to me like a really nice mix or a balance of prospects and vets at the forward level.
Yeah, it's a good way to break it down there. You got your kind of like your three segments, right? Like you have your vets, guys that exactly what you're getting. You have your kind of your higher end, hope these guys work out kind of prospects, and then you have your other tier of prospects that maybe there's a few questions, but certainly there's reason to think that at the AHL level they can certainly contribute and at the very least have an outside of, if not a little bit more than that, shot to maybe make a run at some point for NHL work. So I like how that this year and last year, I really like how they've constructed the roster with Laval. I think they've done a good job of spreading the risk almost, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Not relying too heavily on all vets, not relying too heavily on all kids, trying to find that mix. Not easy to do, but certainly worked out last year, and this year, I think they've gone back to that formula. And I think where teams get in trouble is when they think, well, we have all these prospects and they're all going to hit, and they're all going to develop on a nice, perfect timeline, and then that doesn't happen, and then it's November, December, and you're scrambling. Or the flip side of that is, okay, we're bringing in all these high-end veterans, but sometimes the veterans, their game falls off a cliff. They aren't getting playing time, or you get into having too many vets, so you have guys sitting out. So as it is right now, like it's a very well constructed roster that I think, as I said, like spreads that risk out a little bit and doesn't kind of put all the eggs in one basket.
We've just had an announcement from the league that they've made a partnership with a company to implement a new or at least upgraded video review system for this coming season. Is that something that you can shed a little bit of light on?
Yeah. So it's going to be HD, multi-angle, and the whole ice surface, which should definitely help, like to get that quality up to that level. And it's a little bit different from the NHL, but in terms of what's reviewable and what's not. This will still just be, did the puck cross the goal line or not? Like, very straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely upgrades the technology, and something I think that coaches, players have been wanting for a long time. I don't understand all the tech side of it in terms of there's like a cloud, that's they can access from ice level, the video, but
Mm-hmm.
it's apparently very high tech. So
That's
that's my
great.
very low tech explanation of high tech stuff. So yeah, no, it's that. It's also going to be available for player discipline. So like if there's
Ah,
a hit, that's questionable. If there's something maybe out of the camera angle, on a game broadcast, that kind of thing behind the play, they'll be able to get to that as well. Um, Something that I think should definitely help. Just bring things up to speed and get it to a level that really is on par with a league that's one step below the NHL.
So Laval is like the Montreal Canadiens. They're going to start the season on the road this weekend in Winnipeg to face the Manitoba Moose with games on Friday and Sunday afternoon. And then their home opener at Place Bell will be on Friday, October 17th, and they welcome for 2 games back-to-back the Calder Cup champs, Abbotsford Canucks. So what can fans expect with opening up? And then right after that, it's Belleville. So 3 Canadian teams. What can we expect from the Canadian teams in the AHL this season?
Yeah, so Manitoba, dramatically reconstructed roster. Start off, 2 first rounders from 2023 draft. Braden Yeager, who actually came over from Pittsburgh, and Colby Barlow. So lots of excitement in Winnipeg about those guys. And then the Jets were very aggressive this summer in some much needed upgrades in terms of veterans. So, they brought in Phil DiGiuseppe, Cale Clegg, Samuel Fagemo, like just several guys that can be proven producers at this level in one way or another. So it's going to be a much better Moose team than you saw last year, for example. Abbotsford, like you said, defending Cup champs, certainly had, as you would expect, considerable turnover in the summer. Artur Shilovs obviously moved on to Pittsburgh. He was fantastic last year in the playoffs in net. Players moving up to Vancouver or moving elsewhere for opportunities. So it's good. It's going to be a little bit different in terms of personnel, but Manny Malhotra there, the head coach, did a fantastic job in his first full season last year, and he's back behind the bench. So you got a guy that played years and years and years in the NHL, leading those players. So they're going to be well coached, well structured. And then Belleville's Belleville, right? Like Belleville, always, they're a pesky team to play against every year. It feels like David Bell, head coach. They work hard. They're well structured. What maybe they've lacked in terms of high-end talent, game breaker type talent, they always seem to make up for it with kind of a team by committee approach in terms of scoring. So they'll be solid again. They brought in Hunter Shepard, back-to-back Calder Cup champ, to help out in net. So some good upgrades on the blue line. And as always, you'll see plenty of Belleville this year. At points last year, it felt like every week they were playing each other,
Yeah.
either in Plus Bell or down in Belleville. So one of the AHL's better rivalries, and it's good. I think to have, like, if you're going to have a rival like that in terms of number of games, to have somebody that's is going to really test you, and not somebody that you can kind of walk over. And again, that comes back to getting ready early in the season for that playoff standard. So if you're if you're being tested by a quality opponent like Belleville, who's going to really keep you honest and not let you sort of fall into those bad habits, that's a lot better than, like, for example, like last year, if you were playing Bridgeport 10, 12 times, that's not much of a test, right? And then you get into the playoffs and you're playing quality opponents, and it's like a little bit of a whiplash effect. So it's good, obviously. And then you have the Marlies as well, so that that three-way rivalry, I think, has always kept all those teams honest. And I'm really intrigued to see how the Rockets handle this. It's a good test early in the year. Like, you're getting a good opponent in Manitoba on the road, then you come home against the defending Cup champs, then you play one of your premier rivals. So it's a good way to, I think, kind of really get into the thick of the season, and not kind of, let's be honest, like, beat up on some weaker opponents, right? Like, they'll get Rochester, gave them a great fight last year in the playoffs. And then you look at, like, right, even into November, right? Like, they get more Belleville, they get Providence, they go on the road down to Pennsylvania. So, like, they have some real good early tests in the first 6 weeks or so of the season to help Pascal Vincent's message really sink in.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be quite an exciting season coming up ahead. I think we're even more excited now that you've laid out exactly how, as you put it, how solid their lineup looks up and down the roster. And there's, there was a big disappointment last year with how quickly they exited the postseason. So I think everyone will be on pins and needles to see if they can pick up where they left off at the end of the regular season last year and find that momentum again. The one thing we know we can count on is that you will have your finger on the pulse of everything that's happening around the entire league, including with the Laval Rocket. We always very much value your insight and your input into the Canadiens AHL team, as well as the other 31 teams in the league. If you are not already following Patrick and his work, both on social media and on the sites that he publishes his content on, well, then get yourself ready to get the best coverage around for the AHL for the upcoming season. Be sure to follow Patrick on X at PWilliamsAHL. You can also find his written work at theahl.com, which is the AHL's official website, at flowhockey.tv. You can also find him. He's the AHL correspondent for NHL.com, and you can hear him on SiriusXM Radio. You're everywhere, it seems. Such a hard worker. And, of course, we're going to have you back soon to kind of get you to give us what the current temperature is for the Laval Rocket after they've had a few weeks of regular season action under their belt.
Well, yeah, no, look forward to it. Always a pleasure to be here with the two of you, and talk Laval, talk AHL, talk hockey in general. So thank you for the invite. It's a great way to get the season off on a good foot.
Thank you so much, Patrick. We'll talk to you soon.
Well, that was tremendous. Always enjoy talking hockey with Patrick Williams, and more so talking. He's the AHL guru. That's my term for him. And he gave you an excellent preview of what to expect from Laval and where you should focus your attention and which players, what we're going to be looking at, and how they're going to be successful to the overall Canadiens organization this year.
That's right. Thank you again to Patrick. We will have him back on the show again very soon. But before we take a break and head off to our third segment, we want to be sure to get you your Canadiens Connection question of the week, because we know how much you enjoy sending in your responses to this. And this one is going to be a little controversial, I think. It does not have to do with Laval, but it does have to do with a prospect. Do you think that Lane Hutson's contract situation is going to be resolved quickly? Or could this drag on and start to affect his performance? Ooh, there's a lot of cans of worms that you could open answering this one. Do you think Lane Hutson's contract situation will be resolved quickly, or could this drag on and affect his performance? Send in your answers on our Rocket Sports text line, 585-3-ROCKET. If you're listening on Spotify, you can drop your answer right there in the comments on Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, leave your comments down below the video at our YouTube channel, InsideTheCanadiens.com, or send us your answers on social media. It's at Habs Connection on X, Facebook, and Instagram. Can't wait to hear what you have to say. We're going to read the best answers on next week's episode of the podcast. And for now, before we dive into what you had to say regarding last week's question of the week, we're going to take one last break here on the show, hear from our sponsors over at DraftKings, and we'll be back in just a moment. So stay with us. You're listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio.
Football is back, and so is your shot at big wins. With DraftKings Pick 6, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL, your game day instincts can score you real money fast. Here's the play. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, from breakout rookies to elite QBs, and unlock the upside every snap brings. The better your calls, the bigger your payout. And here's the kickoff bonus. New DraftKings customers get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. This season, play your player instincts. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN. Play just $5, get $50 in Pick 6 bonus picks. Make the call. Ride the upside. In partnership with DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
And welcome back to episode 369 of the Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast if you have not done so already. We've been doing this every week for well over a decade, and we want you along for each and every week, not just throughout the season, but all year long as well. That's right. If you're a relatively new listener, we're here all summer during the off season as well. So you get a dose of Habs talk every single week throughout the year. So hit subscribe. Also be sure you're over on our YouTube channel as well there, where you'll get not only the podcast, which comes out there, but once in a while throughout the week, I'll also be dropping some videos with some quick game reactions on the day following a Habs game. So be sure you're following us over there, InsideTheCanadiens.com, and hit subscribe over there. And when you're able to, whether it's on, if it's on YouTube, hit like and share the videos there. If you're on Spotify, if you're on Apple, be sure you rate the podcast. We appreciate those 5-star reviews, and we certainly look forward to hearing from you. Also, be sure that you are checking out our written content over at hockeyhotstove.com. Just go there, click on the Canadiens logo, and that'll take you straight to the Canadiens page on hockeyhotstove.com, where we provide Habs coverage. Chris G usually has a weekly article there getting you all up to speed on the latest with the Canadiens and the Rocket. And of course, hop into the forums while you're over there. The Montreal Canadiens fan forum is a great place to have some friendly debate and conversations with other passionate Habs fans. So be sure you check that out as well. Get in your answers to this week's Canadiens Connection question of the week. Do you think Lane Hutson's contract situation will be resolved quickly, or could it drag on and affect his performance? As a reminder, last week's question of the week was simply, what will be the biggest surprise this season for the Canadiens? And we had some really great responses coming from a number of different sources. First of which is we have an internal response here on the Rocket Sports team on our team chat channel on Slack that I think Rick is going to read.
Patrick's nice when he's making trades too.
Yes, he is.
He's a scholar. He's a gentleman. He's a good friend, and I've made more fantasy football trades with him than with anybody else. So I didn't mean to characterize him. I'm just in a bad spot, and
I know.
And he's poking fun. Yes, on Rocket Sports Slack, our team has the opportunity to engage in lots of different discussions. And Mike Rasher weighed in on the Lane Hutson discussion, and he said, he starts with his own question. He says, "Are we taking any of this Hutson contract stalemate stuff seriously?" ? I think it's very driven by the Toronto media. Somebody's feeding them, Mike. He's played 1 year and he's just started the second. Correct. Of course, a midsummer deal would have been ideal, but the delay makes sense from his end, considering the wildcat landscape we are dealing with. That's absolutely right. I think the Habs are at $8 million, trying to get him under a Dobson contract, and with Nick/Cole numbers, and the Hutson camp is looking for $10 million, but they don't have enough of an argument yet. I'm on board with the vast majority of what Mike says there. As far, and I've said it earlier, that being patient and expecting this to happen normally and is where I was too. The issue is that something's happened, and this drama, these bad tones have happened. You know, there is some smoke there, and I hope they get past it. Glad to hear that they've taken a time out.
We also had a great response. I put the same question out on my Twitter account as well. Our Canadiens Connection question of the week had one of the great responses we had there was from @PazzaPix. He says, "I think they missed the playoffs. A lot of things went their way last year. I think this year will be a bit of a rut. No second line center, and expecting a sophomore slump from Hutson." All right. Well, that's what he thinks the biggest surprise is going to be this season. Thank you for that comment, and we'll see.
Two things potentially working against Lane Hutson: that sophomore slump and contract negotiations.
All the drama,
and we heard Chris Johnston, speaking of him earlier, in the summer, say everything fell in place for the Canadiens last year, and they might struggle. On YouTube, we have plenty of comments, and why don't you pick one that you like? Yeah, we
had a bunch of comments. We'll just read a few of the better ones. We have @FrankHuber9912 says he thinks that the biggest surprises for the Canadiens this season will be that A, Bolduc scores more goals than Caulfield.
Well,
all right,
he's got a lead so far.
Habs finish ahead of the Sens.
I hope so.
I hope so too.
I don't know if that one's coming true, but I hope so.
Habs get past the first round.
Hope so as well.
And also that this big surprise goes really hand in hand with the character that Jakub Dobeš is. So this would naturally happen to Jakub Dobeš. That Jakub Dobeš initiates a worldwide disco revival and gets run out of town for his troubles.
Okay. Well, Frank's creative.
Yeah. We like it.
Daniel DeJong, 6382 says, I think the Habs, excuse me, I think the Habs make the playoffs barely. Other teams in the division are improving, so competition will be intense. That being said, Habs need to get wins right out of the gate. Toronto will be a good test. That was left prior to the game this past week. And yes, Toronto was a big test.
Good test. At Center Heist 7948 says, I know I'll hear it on this one, but I kind of see it the same as Rocket Rick. I'm leaning towards the Habs being in the battle for the final spot for the playoffs, but just missing it. I really think the loss of the penalty kill specialist ×2 and the loss of Heineman is going to hurt the Habs a bit. And without a second line center, I think it's going to harm Demidov's Calder chances as well. They need to up the skill level on line 2. Sorry, Newhook is a third liner, and I don't know if Kapanen has the physical edge for line 2. So it's as if Demidov is being handed third liners to work with. My aside here is thankfully so far we've seen him and Kapanen have electric chemistry so far, so hopefully that continues. He goes on to say that might work short term, but long term as the season goes on, this is going to bite the Habs in the, and I will simply say in the bum, as long as they keep ignoring that need. And the Habs need to sign Hutson. That should have been done by now.
And Kirby Doc needs to be Kirby Doc. He's been okay, but half step behind so far. He's got to be much better on the faceoff.
And Patrick Laine needs to show up as well.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all. Thank you to everyone who sent in responses. Again, we don't have time every week to read every single one. We just pull out some of the best ones. So get creative. Send in your responses if you want to hear yours read on the show. We've got Saturday Night Hockey for the first time when it counts coming up later on tonight. On Saturday, Montreal finishing out their road trip in Chicago. Another original. I do like that they started the season with 3 original 6 teams. That's been very nice. So they're in Chicago. Samuel Montembeault is getting the start in net.
Best anthem singer in the business.
I'm sure you will be.
Chicago.
Yes, you'll be watching Jim Cornelison. And then Tuesday, the Canadiens finally come home for their home opener against the Seattle Kraken. Back to kind of a regular Tuesday-Thursday schedule. Tuesday night, the home opener against the Seattle Kraken. Thursday night, the Nashville Predators come to town. I believe in our bold predictions episode last week, Rick said that Nashville's head coach was going to be the first one to get fired this year because he doesn't predict that Nashville's going to do very well. So hopefully that means a big win for the Canadiens on Thursday night. All of that happening, of course, before our next podcast episode comes out next Saturday, October 18th. But in between there, you did mention it's a long weekend. So happy Thanksgiving to all of our Canadian listeners out there who are celebrating Thanksgiving this weekend.
Happy Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm.
Eat lots of turkey, eat lots of mashed potatoes and gravy, eat all of the good things. I think I'll make a turkey dinner in support just for the heck of it.
Why not?
Why not? And also, if you're a Habs fan in the U.S., you get a long weekend this weekend as well, hopefully. Happy Columbus Day to all of you. It's a great, it also means there are daytime hockey games on Monday because both countries have a holiday. So if you play A, we get to watch some entertainment in the middle of the afternoon on Monday. But B, it also means if you play fantasy hockey, make sure you got your lineup set on time.
Oh, boy.
And then be sure you're back here again next Saturday, October 18th, for another great episode of the Canadiens Connection podcast. We'll see you there. This is Amy and Rick signing off. Another week, Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio.
Click subscribe so you never miss an episode of Canadiens Connection. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Rocket Sports.